Guys, today we're going to chat a little bit about line capacity on the reels. I get emails and messages on a weekly basis of people asking me how many meters of 50 pound or 80 pound braid can I fit onto my reels. So we're going to chat a little bit about the Slammer 8500, because that's sort of our average big fish reel we use here in South Africa, and we're actually going to put some braid on and see how many meters we actually fit onto these reels. Now when it comes to the thickness, obviously on the reel itself it gives you a guidance and says 50 pound you can get 600 yards on, but the problem is that we try and use the thinnest braid with the strongest breaking strain. So I've got some 0.20 fire line here which I'm going to put on the reel, and then we're going to see how many meters we actually can fit onto this reel. I'm lucky enough to have the line winding machine here, so I'm just going to get the spool off here and put it onto the machine. Alright, so we've got our spool secured to our machine now, and I'm just going to attach our braid to the spool. And there's different ways of putting your braid onto your spool. I'll just show you guys how I do it. And the way I do it is a very simple knot. I take the braid from underneath, go over, wrap it around the braid itself. So basically it's making a loop over the braid, back down over the spool, and then I'm just going to make a simple uni knot here and pull everything tight. Tighten that up. And just move the knot down to the spool. There we go, and the knot's down there. Grab our scissors. Always leave a little bit of a tag end. Centimeter or so. Alright, so ready to go. We're going to reset it. We're at 0. So obviously when you're doing this at home and you haven't got the line winding machine like I've got, the best advice I can give you is get someone to help you. Put your spool of braid with a stick going through it and maybe 2 rags on either side of that spool, holding it nice and tight, keeping pressure on it, and you take your reel, lock the drag, and you wind it on nice and tight. Right, so we're going to get going now. In the 0.20mm thickness of braid, your thinner gauge braids like your Berkeley Whiplash and your Berkeley Black Velvet are very close to 50 pound. I would also like to mention that most of the Penn reels in the 8500 size have got a very similar line capacity. Alright, so that spool is full now, and I don't know if you guys could see there, but there was a golden line on the spool, and that's your guideline to show you where to stop spooling. Now, in the beginning when I started using Penn tackle, I always used to over spool and think I can gain a few meters, but it's actually not a good idea at all because you can get wind knots. So just fill your spool up till that golden line. It doesn't look over full, it looks like it's a little bit empty, but that's the way it should be. And by spooling like that, you won't get wind knots when you cast. And just a little tip, often when you spool up a reel, your first few throws you might get a wind knot, and what I just do is cut that braid off at the wind knot. You lose 10 or 15 meters, and then normally after that there's no more wind knots. Alright, so this one's spooled up now with a 0.20mm braid we used, which is equivalent to 50 pound Berkeley Black Velvet, and a little bit thicker than the 50 pound Berkeley Whiplash, and we managed to get 1340 meters onto the spool. So that just gives you guys a good guideline when you're buying your braid as to how much braid you should buy. Just something else I want to chat about, when you buy a new reel, the way we do as professional fishermen, we always have a top shot, which is a little 300 meter spool we use for our top shot, and that's the one that you keep on replacing when you're fishing a lot. So How do you put your top shot onto your spool? How do you work out where that 300 meters should be? It's actually quite simple. Empty your spool, put that 300 meters on first, fill the spool up to this golden line, and then swap everything around. So that saves you a lot of money in the long run. So when you're fishing a lot and that top shot gets less and less and less, you basically take that off and rejoin it and put another 300 meters on, and the rest just stays on the spool as a backing line. So I've got some fire line here which is 0.25 millimeters, and I know that Berkeley Whiplash at 80 pound is 0.25, and then Berkeley Black Velvet at 80 pound is 0.28 millimeters. So this is very close, and this will give us a very good indication of how many meters we can actually fit onto this spool. Alright, so I'm going to take the spool off, put it onto our machine, join the line, and start winding on the 80 pound. Alright, so 6 times through, pull it nice and tight, and then slide that onto the middle of your spool. Most of the Penn reels have either got a rubber section in the center here or a roughened up section like this, and that's specifically for you to make that knot so your knot doesn't slip and that won't move. Cut the tag end off, leave a little bit of tag end just for insurance, and we can start winding on. Alright, so our spool is full and we got 910 meters on. So just over 900 meters of 80 pound, or should I say 0.25 millimeter, which equivalates to 80 pound when it comes to the Berkeley products. So I hope that helps you guys, especially when you're buying your braid and buying your reels. That's a good indication of how much braid to buy in that 0.25 thickness.